Human evolution is not a straight line. It is a tangled, branching story of survival, extinction, and transformation. To understand how Homo sapiens came to exist, we must first discard the popular myth of a linear march from ape to man. Instead, what emerges from the fossil record is a complex evolutionary bush full of dead ends, forks, and interwoven branches. For millions of years, Earth was home to a wide variety of hominin species. Some were distant cousins, others closer ancestors. Many thrived briefly before vanishing without descendants. A few left lasting traces, bones, tools, DNA fragments that help us reconstruct their place in our shared history. We now know that our species, Homo sapiens, appeared around 315,000 years ago in Africa. But we were not alone. At different points in time, we shared the planet with Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo erectus, and other now extinct members of the genus Homo. And even before them came more ancient hominins, Australopithecus, Ardipithecus, and others that straddled the boundary between ape and human. The story of our origin is not one of inevitability. It is a tale shaped by climate change, environmental pressures, genetic bottlenecks, interbreeding, and innovation. Each species contributed something, a behavior, a trait, a survival strategy that may have influenced what came next. In this documentary, we follow that epic journey, from the first tentative steps of upright walking to the development of language, culture, and civilization. We trace the path not of a single species, but of an entire lineage. A lineage that experimented, adapted, and through a mix of chance and resilience led to us, the last human species left standing. Part 2, the first steps. Homo sapiens is not the beginning of the human story. We are one species among many that have belonged to the genus Homo, a branch of the evolutionary tree that extends back millions of years and includes numerous extinct relatives. Genetic and fossil evidence indicates that humans and chimpanzees share a common ancestor that lived approximately 7 to 10 million years ago. From this divergence point, two distinct evolutionary paths emerged, one leading to modern apes and the other to us. But the early stages of this human lineage are difficult to trace. The fossil record is fragmentary, the evolutionary relationships debated. Still, a number of early hominins offer crucial insights into how the human body began to change. One of the earliest is Sahelanthropus tchadensis, discovered in Chad and dated to around 7 million years ago. Its skull features suggest a mix of primitive and derived traits, including a relatively flat face and small canine teeth, features associated with reduced aggression and possibly more complex social behavior. Another candidate is Ororhyntugenesis, found in Kenya and dating back to around 6 million years ago. Its femur shows signs of bipedal adaptation, evidence that these primates may have walked upright at least part of the time. Then there is Ardipithecus, including A. cadaba and A. ramidus, dating to around 5.6 and 4.4 million years ago, respectively. These hominins retained strong climbing abilities, but also show skeletal traits associated with upright walking. Together, these fossils suggest a gradual shift from tree-dwelling to terrestrial life. Bipedalism did not emerge suddenly. It evolved step by step, under pressures from changing habitats, competition for resources, and new ecological challenges. These early hominins did not yet resemble modern humans, but they represent the crucial first stage of a transformation that would eventually make walking on two legs the defining feature of our lineage, a trait that set the stage for everything that followed. Part 3, from trees to ground. Bipedalism. Bipedalism, walking upright on two legs, is one of the earliest and most defining traits of the human lineage. Fossil evidence shows that this adaptation began millions of years ago, long before the emergence of large brains or advanced tools. Why walk upright? One of the most compelling explanations is energy efficiency. Comparative studies between chimpanzees and humans reveal that walking on two legs uses significantly less energy than knuckle walking. For early hominins facing food scarcity or long distances across open landscapes, this advantage may have been crucial for survival. Another benefit is the ability to carry. Walking upright freed the hands, allowing individuals to transport food, infants, or tools while on the move. This may have supported group cooperation, bringing resources back to a central location for sharing, and paved the way for tool use and social bonding. Environmental change likely played a major role, as Africa's forests gradually gave way to grasslands and savannas due to climate fluctuations. Early hominins would have found fewer trees for climbing and shelter. Walking on two legs allowed them to travel more efficiently across open terrain, spot predators over tall grasses, and access scattered food sources. Bipedalism wasn't an instant transformation. It emerged in stages, reflected in fossils like Orrerin and Ardipithecus, which show mixed features for both tree climbing and ground walking. Evolution doesn't invent from scratch. It modifies what exists. And in this case, a tree-dwelling primate slowly became an upright walker. This shift, though seemingly simple, changed everything. It altered the structure of the spine, pelvis, legs, and feet. It set in motion a cascade of evolutionary changes that would eventually shape tool use, childbirth, brain expansion, and the way humans interact with the world. Part 4. Australopithecus, between ape and human. The genus Australopithecus represents a crucial transitional phase in human evolution, intermediate between tree-dwelling apes and the tool-making humans that followed. These hominins lived in Africa from approximately 4.4 to 1.4 million years ago, and are among the most well-documented early members of our evolutionary lineage. One of the best-known species is Australopithecus afarensis, with the famous specimen, Lucy, discovered in Ethiopia in 1974. Dating to around 3.2 million years ago, Lucy's partial skeleton revealed clear evidence of upright walking. Her pelvis, knee, and leg bones show adaptations for bipedalism, while her long arms and curved fingers suggest she still spent time climbing trees. Perhaps the most striking evidence of A. afarensis bipedalism comes from the Laetoli footprints in Tanzania, dated to 3.6 million years ago. Preserved in volcanic ash, these prints show a well-developed heel strike and toe-off, hallmarks of human-like walking. They confirm that some hominins were walking upright long before the appearance of large brains or sophisticated tools. Despite walking on two legs, Australopithecus species still had relatively small brains, averaging around 380 to 430 cubic centimeters, roughly one-third the size of a modern human brain. Their faces were prognathous, with strong jaws and large teeth adapted for chewing tough plant materials. Their bodies were short and stocky, with adaptations for both ground movement and occasional tree climbing. At this stage, there is no clear evidence of tool manufacture beyond basic object use. Unlike later members of the genus Homo, Australopiths left no trace of deliberate stone tool crafting. But they laid the biological foundation: upright posture, hand dexterity, and social complexity. Australopithecus was not yet fully human, but it wasn't fully ape either. It occupied a unique position in the evolutionary timeline, walking upright, living in complex environments, and setting the stage for the emergence of the human genus. This was the beginning of a new kind of primate, one that would eventually reshape the planet. Part 5. The First Humans. Habilis and Rudolfensis. Around 2.3 million years ago, the human lineage entered a new phase. With the emergence of Homo habilis, we see the first clear signs of tool-making behavior, a turning point that marks the beginning of the genus Homo. Nicknamed the Handyman, Homo habilis is known primarily from fossil discoveries in East and Southern Africa. This species had a larger brain than its Australopithecine predecessors, averaging around 600 cubic centimeters. Its hands show evidence of fine motor control and dexterity, enabling it to shape stone tools with deliberate precision. The tools associated with Homo habilis are part of the Oldowan industry, the earliest known stone tools in the archaeological record. These simple implements, such as choppers and flakes, were likely used to butcher carcasses, process plants, and access bone marrow. While primitive, they represented a major leap in human behavior, the ability to alter the environment using technology. Another hominin, Homo rudolfensis, lived during the same time period, between 2.4 and 1.8 million years ago. Its classification remains debated. The key fossil, a skull found near Lake Turkana in Kenya, reveals a larger brain size, approximately 750 to 775 cubic centimeters. However, its flat face and large molars differ significantly from both H. habilis and later Homo species, leading some researchers to question whether rudolfensis belongs in the same genus at all. The relationship between these two species is unclear. Some scientists believe they represent a single variable species. Others argue they followed separate evolutionary paths. What is certain is that during this period, the hominin lineage began experimenting with intelligence, tools, and social cooperation, laying the groundwork for future human development. With brains still far smaller than our own, these early tool makers took the first conscious steps toward shaping the world around them. Part 6. Homo erectus, the pioneering human. Homo erectus marked a fundamental shift in human evolution. Appearing approximately 1.9 million years ago, this species was the first hominin to combine modern physical traits with new behavioral capabilities, and to leave Africa. Homo erectus lived longer than any other human species, surviving for nearly 2 million years. Fossils have been discovered across a vast range, from East and South Africa, through the Middle East and South Asia, and as far as China and Indonesia. This global presence makes Homo erectus the first true world traveler in the human story. Anatomically, Homo erectus possessed many traits associated with modern humans. Its body was tall, with long legs and shorter arms, adaptations suited for long-distance walking and running on open terrain. Its average brain size ranged from 800 to 1,200 cubic centimeters, larger than any earlier species. The skull, though thick-boned and low-slung, included a projecting nose and flatter face, features that became hallmarks of later humans. Behaviorally, Homo erectus introduced key innovations. It was the first species to consistently use fire. At sites like Kubifora, Kenya, and Wonderwork Cave, South Africa, there is evidence of fire use dating back over 1.5 million years. Whether they mastered fire-making or simply controlled natural fires remains debated. But the implications are profound. Warmth, cooking, protection from predators, and social gathering around flames. They also created more advanced tools. The Acheulean industry, hand axes, cleavers, and bifacial tools showed a leap in planning and precision. These tools remained in use for over 1 million years, a testament to their effectiveness. Some evidence even points to symbolic behavior. Shell engravings found in Java, dating back at least 500,000 years, suggest early forms of abstract representation. Ochre pigments collected at other sites may reflect body decoration or ritual use, early signs of cultural thinking. Remarkably, Homo erectus may have achieved seafaring. Stone tools found on the island of Flores, never connected to mainland Asia, suggest deliberate crossings over open water, possibly as early as 800,000 years ago. With fire, tools, long-distance travel, and hints of culture, Homo erectus laid the foundation for everything that followed. This was no longer just a clever primate. It was the first human to master both land and survival across continents. Part 7. The Builders. Homo heidelbergensis and Homo antecessor. Between 800,000 and 200,000 years ago, a new kind of human emerged, Homo heidelbergensis. This species bridges the evolutionary gap between Homo erectus and later humans, including both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Homo heidelbergensis had a more modern body plan, standing as tall as modern humans, with a robust frame adapted to cold climates. Its brain size averaged between 1,100 and 1,390 cubic centimeters, comparable to our own. The face, though still heavy-browed, was flatter, with a larger cranial vault than its predecessors. This species introduced significant behavioral advances. It is the first known hominin to build shelters, constructing simple dwellings out of wood, stone, or animal hides. This ability to control the environment points to planning, cooperation, and spatial awareness. Heidelbergensis also hunted large game. At sites like Schöningen in Germany, archaeologists uncovered finely crafted wooden spears alongside butchered remains of horses. These spears, balanced, aerodynamic, and up to 2 meters long, suggest that Heidelbergensis hunted in coordinated groups. Dual use also advanced. While they still used Acheulean hand axes, some populations began producing more specialized tools, including those made from bone and antler, indicating increased technological flexibility. Some scientists also associate Homo antecessor, a species found in Spain dating to about 800,000 years ago, with this evolutionary period. Although its exact placement is debated, genetic analysis suggests antecessor is closely related to the last common ancestor of Neanderthals and modern humans. There are also signs of early symbolic behavior. At Atapuerca's Pit of Bones site in Spain, the remains of over 30 individuals were deliberately placed deep in a cave, possibly representing the first known funerary practice. A carefully crafted hand axe was found among the bones, suggesting ritual or symbolic intent. While spoken language does not fossilize, the anatomy of Heidelbergensis, including the hyoid bone and inner ear structures, suggests it may have possessed the vocal range needed for simple speech. This was a species that hunted, built, cooperated, and perhaps even mourned. Homo heidelbergensis was no longer just surviving. It was organizing, adapting, and laying the groundwork for what it truly meant to be human. Part 8. Neanderthals. The extinct sibling. Neanderthals were not primitive brutes. They were a highly adapted human species that thrived across Europe and Western Asia for nearly 400,000 years, from around 430,000 to 40,000 years ago. Anatomically, Neanderthals were built for cold. Their short limbs, wide torsos, and large nasal cavities helped retain heat in Ice Age environments. But their most remarkable feature was their brain, averaging 1,300 to 1,600 cubic centimeters, often larger than that of modern humans. They were skilled hunters, capable of bringing down large game using thrusting spears and coordinated group strategies. Fossilized animal bones found at Neanderthal sites bear cut marks, burn traces, and evidence of organized butchering. Neanderthals also mastered fire, built shelters, crafted clothing, and made adhesives from birch bark. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, one individual was buried with pollen traces from flowers, possibly the earliest known example of a burial with symbolic meaning. Their cultural and symbolic behavior extended further. Neanderthals made jewelry from animal teeth, bird claws, and seashells. In some sites, they collected crystals and pigments. In others, they engraved patterns on bones or cave walls. Cave paintings in Spain, dated to over 64,000 years ago, are now attributed to Neanderthals, predating the arrival of Homo sapiens in the region. While direct evidence of language is lacking, anatomical features such as the modern-like hyoid bone and inner ear structure suggest they had the capacity for speech. Their brains had developed regions associated with social cognition, memory, and tool use. Genetically, Neanderthals live on. As Homo sapiens migrated into Eurasia, they interbred with Neanderthals multiple times. Today, between 1% and 4% of the genome of people of non-African descent comes from Neanderthals. Some of these genes influence traits like skin pigmentation, immune response, and even vulnerability to certain diseases. While Neanderthals eventually disappeared, their legacy remains, written not in stone, but in our very DNA. Far from being a failed branch, Neanderthals were intelligent, adaptable, and deeply human. They were not our ancestors, but they were our closest relatives, and for tens of thousands of years, our companions in the human story. Part 9. Denisovans. The Eastern Enigma. The Denisovans remain one of the most mysterious branches of the human family tree. Discovered only in 2010, this extinct species of archaic human is known not from a skeleton, but from a few bone fragments and teeth, found deep inside Denisova Cave in the Altai Mountains of Siberia. Despite the limited fossil evidence, genetic analysis revealed something extraordinary. The Denisovans were a distinct population, genetically separate from both Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. Yet, like Neanderthals, they interbred with modern humans, leaving behind a genetic legacy in living populations. Today, Denisovan DNA makes up between 4% and 6% of the genome in some groups in Southeast Asia, Melanesia, and Papua New Guinea. This suggests that interbreeding took place as early humans migrated eastward into Asia, likely encountering Denisovan populations along the way. The Denisovans also interbred with Neanderthals. One fossil, a bone fragment from a young girl found in Denisova Cave, was shown to belong to a first-generation hybrid, her mother a Neanderthal, her father a Denisovan. This direct evidence confirms that genetic exchange between human species was not rare, but ongoing. What we know of Denisovan capabilities comes mainly from inference. They likely lived across a vast geographic range, from cold mountain regions like the Tibetan Plateau to lowland jungles of Southeast Asia. Genetic traces suggest high-altitude adaptations that may have helped modern Tibetan populations survive in low-oxygen environments, but much remains unknown. No definitive Denisovan tools, art, or dwellings have been found. Their culture, behavior, and appearance are still a matter of speculation. Still, the Denisovans reshaped our understanding of human evolution. They remind us that we are not the product of a single lineage, but of many species, interacting, competing, and merging across time. The Denisovans may be gone, but their presence endures, in our blood and in the genetic map of humanity. Part 10. Ghost DNA and Unknown Ancestors. Not all of our genetic inheritance comes from species we've identified. In recent years, genome sequencing has revealed that Homo sapiens carries traces of DNA from hominin groups that have never been found in the fossil record. These unidentified contributors are known as ghost species. Unlike Neanderthals and Denisovans, who left behind bones, tools, and archaeological sites, ghost species remain invisible, known only through their genetic fingerprints. Their DNA appears as anomalies within the modern human genome, especially in certain African populations. Genetic studies of West African groups, such as the Yoruba and Mende, have uncovered DNA segments that do not match any known archaic hominin, including Neanderthals and Denisovans. These sequences are deeply divergent, suggesting that they originated from a lineage that split from the human family tree over 1 million years ago. Some researchers speculate that these genes could have come from late surviving populations of Homo erectus, Homo antecessor, or perhaps an entirely unknown archaic species that never fossilized or has yet to be discovered. These ancient genetic fragments are most prominent in sub-Saharan Africa, where human genetic diversity is highest. Because African fossil records are sparser and more difficult to date, it's likely that multiple hominin populations once coexisted and interbred, leaving complex genetic legacies that are only now being decoded. In some cases, this ghost DNA appears to influence immune response or metabolism. In others, its function remains unclear. What is certain is that the history of human evolution is far from simple. It involves more than just Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and Denisovans. It includes entire populations that left no fossils, only whispers in our genomes. These ghost species remind us we are not the end product of one lineage, but the outcome of many interwoven histories, some visible, some still hidden. Part 11. Homo sapiens, the last human standing. Homo sapiens, the only surviving species of the human genus, first appeared around 315,000 years ago in Africa. Unlike earlier hominins, we were physically lighter, more agile, and had a larger brain, averaging about 1,350 cubic centimeters. These anatomical differences came with major behavioral shifts that ultimately set us apart. Early Homo sapiens showed evidence of high cognitive abilities, complex tool-making, long-distance resource exchange, symbolic expression, and organized social life. Stone tools from this period were more specialized and standardized than those of previous species, suggesting planning, teaching, and refinement over generations. Language likely emerged around this time, though its exact origins remain unclear. Anatomical features such as a modern hyoid bone and skull structures indicate that Homo sapiens had the vocal apparatus required for speech. Combined with symbolic thought, this likely enabled more efficient communication, memory retention, and social coordination. Evidence of early art, engravings, beads, and ochre use appears as early as 100,000 years ago. By 40,000 years ago, cave paintings, musical instruments, and personal adornments had become widespread. These symbolic behaviors point to abstract thinking and a capacity for culture unmatched by any other species. For most of our history, we lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers. These societies were small, mobile, and egalitarian, relying on deep knowledge of the natural world and cooperation to survive. Around 12,000 years ago, however, a radical transformation began, the shift to agriculture. By domesticating plants and animals, humans altered the environment to meet their needs. This allowed permanent settlements, population growth, and the rise of social hierarchies. Villages evolved into towns, towns into cities, and cities into civilizations. Writing, governance, religion, and technology followed. The success of Homo sapiens lies not in raw strength or instinct, but in adaptability, innovation, and shared knowledge. We outlasted all our close relatives, not through dominance alone, but through cooperation, creativity, and cultural inheritance. Today, we are the last human species on Earth, but we are not alone in our origins. Our genome carries traces of those who came before, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and others whose names may never be known. Their legacy lives within us, as memory, as code, and as a reminder that our story is part of something much older and far more complex. Part 12. Conclusion. The future in the past. The story of human evolution is not a straight path. It is a network of branches, dead ends, and turning points. It spans millions of years, shaped by extinction events, environmental pressures, genetic exchanges, and behavioral breakthroughs. Dozens of hominin species once walked this planet. Some vanished quickly. Others thrived for hundreds of thousands of years. All contributed in some way to the lineage that ultimately led to us, Homo sapiens. We did not reach this point by strength alone. Our survival depended on adaptability, problem-solving, and collaboration. We built tools, mastered fire, and expanded into every ecosystem on Earth. We developed language, memory, and imagination. We formed communities, created symbols, and passed down knowledge. Through interbreeding, we absorbed the legacies of other human species, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and perhaps others still unknown. We are not separate from them, but the product of their resilience and our shared ancestry. Today, Homo sapiens stands alone, but the traces of our ancient relatives remain, embedded in our genomes, buried in the soil, etched on cave walls. These remnants remind us that we are part of a larger story, one that began long before history and continues to unfold. Understanding human evolution is not just about looking backward. It is about recognizing the fragile balance that allowed us to emerge and the responsibilities we carry as the last human species. We are capable of great innovation, but also destruction, of cooperation, but also conflict. The past teaches us that survival requires adaptation. But more than that, it requires foresight, cooperation, and an awareness of our place within the natural world. If we are to have a future, it must be shaped not just by intelligence, but by wisdom. This is not just a story of who we were. It is a mirror reflecting who we are, and a question for who we choose to become.